everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Riding the Wave, a dedicated space for mental health awareness and suicide prevention, with the goal of fostering understanding, breaking down stigma, and providing valuable resources for those navigating mental health challenges. Today, I am here with Miss Karen Smith and my mommy, Dottie Sly, and we're talking about managing your mental health and your child's safety when you have a suicidal child or child dealing with mental health struggles. So thank you for being here, Miss Karen.
Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely.
To be here.
I'm thrilled Karen's here. Karen is one of my favorite people on the planet. And I have learned a lot from her on her social medias are amazing. What are you under again?
MMMH Walk Across Iowa.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. But she's an amazing writer and she's brutally honest and it's very helpful. I'm glad you're here.
It's better to tell the truth, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Reality is better than
yes.
covering things up.
Yes. That's true. That is true.
We talked about in our teen mental health about how sometimes honesty is better than beating around the bush. So my first question for you is, how can you best support your child with suicidal ideation?
Okay, big questions. First and foremost, I would say you can't fully understand what they're going through because you're not in their brain, you're not in their head, and everybody's perception is different. And I guess just letting them have their feelings, sit with their feelings, own their feelings, and let them know that it's okay to feel what they're feeling, whether it's, angry, sad, scared, frustrated. And sometimes, like my oldest son has said, sometimes I think it would just be easier, to not be here than to go through what I'm going through. And that's a valid feeling to him. And so making sure that you're validating their feelings and letting them know that it's okay instead of trying to plant maybe different things in their head that they're not ready to accept, they're not ready to believe. So, as a parent, you want to fix, you want to heal, that's your job, right?
Yeah.
As a parent, to solve the problem, make the pain stop, find the solution. And there's a huge difference between physical hurt and emotional hurt. Physical hurt, we can clean the wound and put the Band-Aid on and let the broken bone heal. And emotional pain is not clear-cut. We may not have the answers. It's kind of letting them guide themselves and you, kind of through what they're feeling. And yes, of course, you can plant seeds and make suggestions, but a couple of the big things that I learned, when you want to say, well, look at all these amazing things you have to live for, and all of this in the moment, they don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
They don't see that. They can't see an hour down the road, a day or a week or 5 years into the future. They're thinking about what they're feeling right now. I think working in the moment where they're at, meeting them where they're at, is important. If that makes sense.
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I've really learned, which I still am not good at, is not to panic because I am I'm a zero to dead in a ditch kind of girl. It's never.
Can confirm.
Yeah. I mean, it's always either okay or they're dead. It's just, there's no in between. And so I am not good at not panicking, and I've had to learn to just take a breath and sit with you in that moment, I guess, Abby. And I'm still not great at it, because I feel like it's almost like when you're when you're on a plane, right? And there's really bad turbulence, I'm always looking at the flight attendant. If she's not panicking, then it's like, I know she's okay. I know it's okay. Yeah. It's not, I don't need to worry if the flight attendant's not screaming and running to her seat. So that's kind of what I've had to learn and think about when Abby has a bad night or something. It's like, if I'm calm, she knows it's going to be okay. I think that's been my hardest and it's scary. It's just scary.
It's your first instinct. Really, when you're first going through those things, I think that is your first instinct is to panic because I can't fix this.
Yes.
I don't have the tools to fix this. And you are battling against one of nature's most fascinating, complicated, multifaceted piece of equipment we have, which is the brain.
Yes.
And
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And you don't fully understand it. The brain is a tricky, complicated thing. It's hard to battle against that. And when it's making your loved one think things that you don't want them to be thinking, and or when the depression or the anxiety or all of that has a grip, trying to change those thoughts, trying to change those ways of thinking are not immediate. That takes time and practice, to change those thoughts and those things. And so, in the immediate, it's like, I can't fix this right now. So how do I derail? How do I divert? What can I do right now in this moment to kind of derail those thoughts, to get them to a better place, and then hopefully get them to a space where they can, go to therapy or whatever and practice those skills, get those skills, and at least you have something better to help you the next time, if there is a next time, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Piggybacking off of that, like, what is the hardest part of having a child with suicidal thoughts, other than the fact of, like, not knowing what, like the fear of losing them?
For me, it's never being able to feel completely settled, or never, I don't think there's ever going to be a time in my life right now that I can ever fully think to myself, well, we're past that. We're past that. It's always, always, always going to be a worry in the back of my brain, and not having that freedom to not have to worry about that is, it's hard.
Absolutely. And because of that, I don't allow Abby to be a normal person that gets sad, honestly, or has a bad day, because every sadness and every frustration and every bad day is in my brain. Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
she's suicidal.
Right.
And that's not fair to her, because she's not. Sometimes she just has a really lousy day.
Most of the time.
And most of the time. And she should. She's a normal human being.
Right.
And so that's how it's affected me the most, is that I'm having a hard time letting that part go. And for her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I do.
It's hard.
And my boys, probably like Abby does too, like, they get annoyed with me, they get frustrated with me, and they're like, because you still want to jump in and fix the problem, and they're like, Mom, I'm just having a bad day, just let me have my bad day. And another thing that would just pop in my head about why is it so hard, in my case, just that I can't force them to want to get help. Both of my boys are, my oldest for sure is like so dead set against therapy and trying anything to get better, to gain skills, to combat those thoughts that he's having. And it's frustrating to me, like, you don't like living like this with these thoughts in your head, but yet you're not willing to do things to help yourself heal, to help yourself get better. And that's super frustrating too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at some point, we as parents have to say it's ultimately their decision. And that's so hard because we know we have the experience of age. I know there are really hard times in life, but I also know that you can get better and life can be so much more than what you ever dreamed of. But you have to get there, and you have to, I always think you have to walk through that fire. You have to, like, there's just no really way around it, right? So we know that. They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
They don't know that. They think this is it. This is all they're going to feel ever, and this is the only thoughts that are going to be in their head, and that's hard.
Yes. It's hard for them to see the future, and especially for my oldest, who has struggled with anxiety literally since the age of 4, so that's like all he's known all his life, and he can't see a better, happy future. He'll still ask me today, he did the other day, like, I just want to be happy, and I can't be happy, even though he has a family that loves him. He has a boyfriend of 3 or 4 years now who loves and supports him, and he still struggles with those feelings. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's hard.
Yeah.
Well, and I think now correct me if I'm wrong, Mom, but I think for my mom, something that's really challenging is with the work we do with the nonprofit, we hear stories of my kid was completely fine, and then one day he was gone or she was gone. And I think my mom hears that and she automatically goes, anytime I'm having on the rare occasion I'm having a perfect day, she's she panics and she's like, oh my God, Abby's suicide. I'm not going to have her for much longer.
This is the calm before she's relieved she's made the decision before that.
Yeah.
It's either a good day or a bad day, Abby. I'm panicking. So that's a good point. I'm always panicking.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and I get it because from the child perspective, I have nieces and nephews that if I had to, I would take care of them in a heartbeat. And I know that if something were to happen to them, I would be devastated. So I know that a parent, that's the worst thing to happen to a parent is to lose a child. And I understand that that is scary, and I can empathize with that. I can understand that it's scary. And I also know that having a suicidal mind is something that is also scary for the person with those thoughts, because at the end of the day, a suicidal brain doesn't want to die. They just don't want to feel the pain or the hurt or the sadness or the anxiety that they feel on a day-to-day basis. Just going back to how I started this, I just think my mom, that's something that's really hard for her too, is just we hear so many stories. And it's a blessing that people are so open about sharing, their stories with us. And it's also, sometimes plants new ideas in my mom's head. Me and my therapist are trying to get my mom to get a therapist, yes, but that's a whole nother story.
I just asked Karen for some good recommendations. So I do. And to Abby's point, if she's having a rough day, I panic. If she's having a really good day, it's in the back of my mind, why is she so happy? Why is she,
It's called BPD and splitting. But, well, and I also think and Karen, I don't know if your boys have done psych stays or anything, but I think as traumatizing as hospitalization was for me, I think it was very traumatizing for my parents, because 100%. My second stay, they were able to come in and visit me and see what I was dealing with for however many days I was in there, 24 hours a day. And I think that seeing that that's what it got to, that's the level it got to, I think would be, if that was me as a parent, that would be a hard pill to swallow. That's really scary.
Well, and just seeing your child in that situation it's difficult. So my oldest did a couple of nights just on a psych floor in a hospital. It wouldn't have been my choice at the moment. It was his friends who convinced him to go. I just remember, the whole locked door and everything was so locked down, and having to put all of your stuff in a locker, and you couldn't, like, they had to check your bags, and just like the whole feeling of this lockdown situation was just frightening as a parent.
Yeah.
And then just seeing him in that situation with, I mean, I don't know what your situation was like, but like the people in there were so much sicker than
Yeah, it's
him.
so different, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my son, with severe anxiety, in that kind of situation where he's scared of the people in there, I could think he's not going to heal here. I mean, this is not the right place for him. But he didn't know how to ask. He was too scared to speak up and say, I'm okay. I can't be here. I don't want to be here. And because he had self-admitted, in a way, he had the ability to say, I'm ready to go, but he didn't know he could ask, for that. And so I pulled a nurse aside and I said, look, we've got some questions and he's too scared to ask. Will you just sit with us?
That's a good point. Like there are people in there with schizophrenia. There are people in there that are, my first hospital stay, a girl walked up to me like my first 5 minutes of being there and asked if I was homicidal. And I was like, no. Like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
I think it was one of our main problems with our systems is
Yes.
all of these kids need help. My brother was schizophrenic when I was growing up. That's scary. I mean, that's a whole, to me, that's a, not that anything's different or better or easier. It's a whole different thing.
Well, yeah, that's like you're hearing things and seeing things.
You're seeing things. And so, but that needs to be treated in one space. And the anxiety kids need to learn coping skills. That needs to be a different place. The eating disorder kids, that's a whole nother thing. I just feel like all these people really, but especially children, deserve their own space with people like them. Is that fair to say?
What? Yes.
Because I don't, I just think it.
I mean, that's how you can heal better.
Yes.
Because a huge thing for me was like the first time was so traumatizing, I think, because there was a girl with who knows what was going on, but it was just like a constant every day. There was some new episode and we were having to just sit there. Like they were telling us like, move away from her, stay on the opposite, like when she's having these episodes, like get away, let the nurses deal with it. And it was just like, all we could do was like, it's like watching like, what's the saying? Like watching a car crash, like you want to look away, but you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that was what it was. It was like, it was like so scary to be watching, but like looking away, like I could not,
Right.
you know what I mean? So,
Right.
So what he ended up walking away with was just sort of a generic response. And the reason why he accepted going was because he thought he was going to maybe find a different answer, somebody that would help him in a different way that hadn't already been tried, or, and the response to him was just, it was sort of generic and not what he was looking for. And not helpful at all.
Yeah.
I know there are places where maybe you can find those answers, but maybe they're far away, and getting a bed, in a place like that is impossible.
Yes.
Or, months or years out. So
I almost feel like a lot of these places are stopgaps. Is that the right word? Because it keeps these kids safe. And I guess I'm talking about kids because we're talking about our children, but
that absolutely is the case.
it keeps them safe. And I remember feeling, Abby, when you were there, it's like I can take a breath. I know you're being watched. Like someone is watching you 24 hours, so I can breathe for a minute. Right. So I knew that you were going to be safe, but so that was a relief. But it's to keep everybody safe. I don't think the system right now is working, but it's better than nothing. Let's just put that out there.
Right.
I don't want anybody to think, no, we can't,
Right.
that's not going to work, because it's better than nothing. But sometimes that's all you can do as a parent.
I mean, yeah.
You have till they're 18. You have a certain amount of time to get them help. You're going to do anything as a parent. You're going to do whatever it takes to make it okay for that kid, and to at least give them the opportunity to get help.
And to go back to what you said about for you to be able to have a moment to breathe. So that first night when my son called me and said he was in the hospital, and of course I went right over, and even though he was like, no, don't come, what am I going to do? So I'm not going to stay.
I'm just going to stay on the couch and eat chips.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, no, I am coming. And at that point, when I got there, he was still in the emergency room area, and they were deciding what to do. And at that point, I'm going to get a little emotional. I could have decided probably to take him home with me, but I didn't. Part of that was like, maybe this is where he needs to be. Maybe we just need to see how this plays out. We haven't tried this before.
Right.
You know, this is me. I felt just icky walking out of there and leaving him there. But at the same time, it's a little sigh of relief, like a little, I know he's safe there. But yeah, I totally relate to that, just having a minute to just breathe and not have to worry. Did I sleep that night? No. Right. You know, I didn't sleep.
It's hard.
It is.
It's hard.
Well, like with him, I mean, it literally had been since the age of 4, you know, and when you've tried so many different things, and
It's hard.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, again, I want to make sure people understand it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's always, so I don't want anybody to feel like, well, you know, it's not worth it, because it is. It's coming to terms with, I have a kid that needs a lot of help, that this is not normal teenager angst, or it's not normal little kid fear. Like, I remember how hard it was to make that turn. And I think that's what a lot of parents go through. When you're on a whole different path, when you can accept and say that your child is struggling with mental health issues, I mean, you are now down a whole different path. And that's why I think it's hard for a lot of people. I think that's why, you know, we have friends who are like, you know, buck it up, Buttercup, you're going to be fine. You know, like, honestly, I don't look at me, because I do the wrong thing. I've done the wrong thing from the beginning. But they're like, you know, you're too easy on her. Throw her in the pool and let her swim. It's a hard decision.
What I tell people, new moms and dads, and this is what I tell people all the time, when you have a kid and, you know, you think it's going to be all rainbows, and you have these expectations of what their life is going to look like, and you know, they're going to do all of these amazing things with their life, and it's just going to be all amazing. And you're also dealing with these socially constructed ideas of timelines and education and, you know, all of these things that we're expected to be, right? Or you don't mean to, but you kind of, in your brain, expect your kids to as well, you know? It's just so embedded and ingrained in us. When something happens, or when they end up not meeting that dream, or
so those milestones, quote,
yes, then it's hard to accept. It's hard to accept.
It's hard to give up your dream for them.
Yes. And so with both of our boys, it was, you kind of go through a mourning period when you realize life is not going to be how you expected it. You know, it's not going to be what you thought it was going to be. And you go through a little bit of anger and sadness, and then you come to acceptance, you know, that life can look different, and it needs to look differently for them, and that's okay.
That's absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
And I think you felt that a little bit with, I mean, what do we ask our kids when they're in high school? What are you going to do?
What do you want to do?
Where are you going to college? What are you going to major in? You know, I mean, these are 17, 18-year-old kids. We start asking that when they're 14, 15, 16. When they're little, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know,
Well, like college athletes, like I'm thinking, like I heard I watched a podcast with Hannah Stolke. She committed to Iowa her freshman year of high school. At 14 or 15 years old, like she already was committed to a college.
That's a lot of pressure.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not her fault. That's just how.
That's how it works. If you want to play, yeah. Well, it's like when you danced. I mean, there's some things that these kids, they have to commit to at a young age, and because that's what it takes to be able to do it. Whatever you're going to do. But
with ballet, it was like I had to move. Like the goal was to move away at 14 to do a pre-professional program, and by the time I was like 17, 18, I would be in a professional ballet.
Yeah.
But I think
company.
you felt, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I think it's been hard for you now to have decided you want to do something and change that. I think what you're doing now is 1,000 times more important than what you did, by the way. And even though it doesn't look to people, you're not getting paid for the good work you're doing.
Yeah.
You're getting paid emotionally and you're helping people. That to me is far more than you making a great salary. But I shouldn't probably say that because you know what I mean? I mean, I know we all have to live and we all have to work. But my point is, I think it's been hard for you because people are like, well, where are you working? What school are you going to? Those questions of.
Well, like even like getting my nails done, like the person doing my nails would be like, "Are you in school here?" And I'm like, "No." They're like, "Oh, you're working?" No. And so, or like graduation parties, like, "Oh, what are you up to now?" And it's like, "Oh."
Yes. And even family gatherings, are difficult.
Yeah,
Especially for both us and the boys because. I just posted about this kind of recently. Like, you get that question, well, what are you guys doing these days? What are you up to? And it's like, how do you answer that question without people judging or feel like you're being judged? On what you're doing.
Yes.
And like where the boys are in their lives right now. Yeah. And again, it's that socially constructed.
Yes. The expectations.
Thinking. Yes. We just need to get rid of.
Yeah.
How's Abby doing? Well, she went to Dubuque the other day, which was huge for her. People are looking at me like, what?
Right. I know. Yeah. Like when I say like, I drove an hour and a half away from my house and people are like, do you want a gold medal? Like,
and you're like, yes,
I do.
That was really hard
for me.
That was very scary for me. I think I've developed a little bit of agoraphobia or whatever it's called. Like, leaving the house is very scary. So, like, driving an hour and a half away was like a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And if we're the only people that think that's exciting, then, we're the only people that think that. But you're right. The most of the normal world is kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And that's why it's good for, these platforms to just kind of remind people that success doesn't look the same for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like it's so easy to compare your life to the people on social media or like people that you know.
If this was normal and we made it normal, then it wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
So this is what we're trying to do is break that stigma, right? Mm-hmm.
So how do you find support as a parent to help your child?
So the game changer for me was stumbling across other parents in similar situations. Mm-hmm. Being able to have other people who could identify with what I was going through. Mm-hmm. And maybe the situations weren't, exactly the same because obviously everybody's situation is different. But I didn't feel so isolated. I didn't feel so lonely. Mm-hmm. I felt connected to other people who could understand what I was feeling and tell me it was okay. Mm-hmm. And this is what we've done and this is what we've tried. And just to have connections to more people like that was a huge game changer.
Yeah, I agree.
For me.
And I said, you've been so good. And you and I don't talk all the time, but I know if I see you, I tell you how much I love you and we hug, and I know you're there. Like, it's just that
it's a feeling.
Comfort of knowing you would be there in a heartbeat if I needed you, that kind of strength. And your words, that's why it's so important to share your truth, I believe.
Yes.
Because you don't know. There are people out there that don't want other people to know they're struggling or their children are struggling.
Yeah.
And when they see someone being really brutally honest about it, it's a gift. When you're in that space, I feel like sometimes, especially if none of your everyday people around you have the same issue, you think, well, something's really terribly wrong with us and I can't share that. And I just think it's important to share.
The support of other parents in the same boat.
Yeah.
Support just could look like, I just read this beautiful thing that Karen wrote, or I just saw this cool meme that so-and-so posted, or that is even support, I guess.
And just learning to give ourselves grace,
Yes.
you know, and realizing that we're going to make mistakes and we're not perfect, and, you know, and forcing yourself to give yourself time, which is one of the hardest things, to give yourself time, because you can't keep giving if you don't have anything in there, anything left in there to give.
Yeah.
One of the ways I kind of realized that was like when things are bad, like you just step up to the plate, you just do it. Don't even think about it, you just do it. And then it's in the down times that kind of in the moment strength subsides a little bit. And so you're stronger. And then all of a sudden you fall apart,
The adrenaline
I mean,
goes,
because you just can't hold it in anymore. And so then I would have a week where I'm just like weepy and just, emotional and everything like that. And then because I needed that time, I needed that space. And then it was like, okay, I'm okay. I can do this again.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself that time, I think, is really important.
What has been the hardest decision as a parent to make in regards to your child and getting them help?
Well, there again, it's like when they're younger and you kind of have that parental control and you can say, you're going to therapy. That kind of goes away when they become adults and you can't make them want it. You can't force them into it, even though it's going to give them some skills, some tools, some relief. The other thing too is, so my oldest, he was in therapy for quite a while, but then he kind of got to this point where he knew kind of how to manipulate, like to say the things that he thought the therapist would want to hear instead of being honest and fully sharing to get the full benefit. And knowing that, and I want to like go into the therapist's office and say, everything he said to you was a lie. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. He's going to tell you everything's okay. And it's not, that's difficult.
Yeah.
Just accepting that, like I posted the other day, that they're kind of in charge of their own journey now. And I can suggest, I can plant seeds, I can lead by example. And I'm taking my own meds, I'm going to therapy, I'm doing all of that stuff. I can be an example and hope that it rubs off on them. But I can't make them want to do these things to heal themselves, to get better. They have to want it. And it's super hard.
Yeah. For people with kids under 18, like it was always so hard for me to know, okay, is this a normal thing that I need to let her make the mistake? Do I step in? That to me was always the hardest. By the way, did everything wrong because I'm sure I rescued you. I'm
right there with you.
It's hard because their struggles. Other people don't. And so I didn't want her to hurt anymore or to struggle anymore. Probably the underlying message I was giving her was, you aren't strong enough to figure this out on your own, so I have to step in, which I apologize publicly for that. I
never noticed that happened. So.
But you know what I mean? Like I didn't know when to just let it happen.
Yes, that I would totally agree with you, that knowing when to push and knowing when to take a step back.
Yes.
Trying to navigate that.
Yes.
And the what ifs. Well, what if I do this? And what if I don't do this? And what if this? And what if that? And then you just kind of get stuck sometimes and don't do anything. Or you say the wrong thing. And because I would say to myself, well, what if I push too hard and that, pushes them over the edge? And what I should have been thinking was, well, what if it leads them to somewhere better?
Yes.
It was always the negative. What if I push too hard?
Yes.
Then it leads to, self-harm or something like that. And then that would be on me,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. That's a perfect way to say
And
that.
I wasn't really thinking about, well, what if this is the thing that moves them forward,
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the stepping back, yes, like being scared to step back and let them live in the struggle a little bit and figure out how to navigate that. And that's scary too, because what if I do step away and it leads to self-harm,
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
and I should have done something,
Right.
It's
that fear of being responsible for their
doings.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's kind of an epiphany, but yes.
Yeah.
But right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the end, what you and I both have learned is in the moment, we did what we thought was right.
Yes.
And for my part, I would say it was out of protection. Like I thought I was protecting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Also, sometimes I would make the easier choice because I was simply just exhausted, and worn out. And instead of choosing the harder choice, which would have maybe led to better things, I chose the easy choice because I just was too tired.
Yes. And it kept peace. Like there was no drama. We can just,
Yes, exactly. Keeping the peace was
you had weird eating stuff going on. Not an eating disorder, but you didn't like certain restaurants you didn't like to go blah 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 as you were little.
Well, it's OCD.
Okay. So, but instead of this is where we're going, Abby, you're welcome to sit with us and not eat, it would be, okay, well, she's not going to want to go there. So we're going to have to go here,
Yes.
Sorry to throw that under the bus, but that's the truth. I mean, so we always make accommodations out of that. Always made accommodations.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't worth
the battle.
The battle.
Yes. In doing so, in doing these little things for years.
Yep.
Ended up, I don't want to use the word crippling because has kind of derogatory feeling to it, but
it gave them a disadvantage.
Sort of disabling them a little bit into learning how to fight through those tough things because we always jumped in to protect or, and I do feel like I did spend a lot of time trying to help foster those skills, but there was also a lot of time where I used protective things and not given them an opportunity to learn how to use their power. You know what I mean?
I'm going to be super honest. I bet it taught them that everybody's going to come in and make it better for them and easy for them.
Yes.
And so when they're out in the real world, they're like, well, I don't like this. Why are you,
someone come to my rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I am sorry.
It wasn't. Oh my gosh.
But it's true.
It's not intentional. You're doing what you think is best.
But you're right.
We're finding out that it's very difficult to backpedal now.
Yes.
And not take back, but now that they're adults, it's a lot.
Undo.
There you go. Thank you, dear. That was the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Yes.
It's hard to undo that.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychological expert.
We
or
are
anything
just
like that.
parents with lived experience.
Right. But when, you hear all the time when kids are little and they're growing up and that's where they're learning all of these ideas and things, it's easier to fix those things at that point. But now as adults, it's a lot harder to change those thoughts and those thinking, that thinking, I think.
I was wrong from the very beginning. I did not like Abby to be screaming because I don't want her to feel like
as an
she's
infant.
Not safe. Yes, as an infant. Sorry, not as a 20-year-old. I was horrible. Please don't write letters or send emails or
leave a hate comment.
Leave a hate comment.
Dislike the video.
I was the parent that crawled in the crib and laid with her till she fell asleep. Mm-hmm. I mean, That's pitiful. I'm sorry. And I would sit in I tried really hard to let her scream it out. That just tore me up. Like, I don't want her to feel alone. I don't want that,
Well, let me share some honesty as well. So my oldest, the one with severe anxiety since a very young age, crawled into bed with me almost every night for years.
Yep.
And probably I allowed it for longer than I should have.
Yep.
But at that time, it was like, I'm not going to fight this battle.
I got to sleep.
He's got to sleep. My husband was a third shifter. I'm like, I'm not messing with that. But what was I teaching him?
I know. Same.
I wasn't, And for him, it was like, this is safe. This is where I feel safe. This is where I'm comfortable. And this is where I can sleep. Because he was like insomnia, terrible insomnia. Both of them actually had terrible insomnia. And I let him have that safe zone, that safe space, when I should have been put him back in his own bed, let him figure out how to work through that on his own.
Right.
Things like that. But yeah, I feel, that's what, yeah.
Well, and that just brought up a memory for me. After Dylan passed away, my mom had me sleep in her bed with her. Like, my dad,
he was there.
He was not in the bed with us.
Then maybe he was.
He was in the guest bedroom.
Yeah, he did sleep in the guest room because he had to get up early. Yeah.
And so it was just me and my mom in her room, and that was for a good. I think it stopped after my second hospital stay, so it was a good 6 months of me being in there. And I remember, I would be like, I want to sleep in my own bed. I would literally throw mini temper tantrums. I'd be like, I want to sleep in my bed.
But I wanted you, I was so afraid something was going to happen. I remember sleeping outside her door several times, and that's, I hope we're making other parents feel better and giving a, good warning to the parents with younger children. But
yeah, my oldest will probably kill me for saying this, but in his younger stages of anxiety, he would have big meltdowns, destroy the room and everything. And there was one time that he did almost be successful at throwing himself out of his second floor bedroom window.
Wow.
Because he was just so irrational at that moment. After that, just the whole, we would say, go to your room. Now I'm like, God, what if he threw himself out of his window? I know. I could never not wonder what, my gosh, what. And then he knew how traumatizing that was for us.
Yeah.
So then he would use that.
Right.
Well, fine, I'm just going to throw myself out my window then,
Yeah.
But I could never
just say, well, go ahead.
Yeah. Right. And what if I just was like, okay, and back away? And what if he actually did it? Then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's why us parents are like we are. This is why we have all this trauma of our own.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's why, I talked to my therapist, and I'm like, my mom, I know she's traumatized from everything she's been through with me, because it wasn't just traumatizing for me. It was traumatizing for her to watch me go through all of that.
Yes. And yes, Mama, you need to go to therapy.
I do need to go to therapy.
Thank you.
Yes.
I do need to go to therapy.
Because, and I'm just saying, it's not going to completely fix your own PTSD from all of that, but it does help.
Yes.
It does help. Because that's the stage where we're never totally out of danger. Like I said, I can never fully let myself believe that we're out of danger, but we're not in the thick of the dark days anymore. Now that I'm not 10, you know what I mean?
fight or flight. You're in that constant
Or freeze.
Yes. And so that's when I started really feeling the effects of my own parental PTSD, from dealing with all of that. And like you said, it makes us hard to let them go and give them space.
Yes.
And that's not on them. That's on us.
Yeah.
All those years of being in that fight or flight protective mode.
Yeah.
We don't know how to be anything else now.
Yeah.
I don't know how to not be that parent anymore because I've been it for so long. Right. So every time they leave the house and every time, they even start getting a little growly, it's like my heart starts beating and you're sweating and like you have all of these reactions like, okay, here we go. We're right back to, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so therapy has helped me work through a lot of that.
Okay. I promise. Scouts on it. Well, it's that magical thinking too that because we've been this way and they're still here, if I'm not this way, what's going to happen? Right?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
But that's magical thinking. That's not even rational.
And like I said, I'm still not there yet, and I don't know if I ever will be able to be in that. Right. But at least I'm not like hover. I'm getting better at not being the hover mom, So.
Well, my last question for both of you is, what do you want people to take away from everything we've talked about in the podcast today?
I think parents, you need to give yourself grace.
Yes.
You need to be okay with a child who is not going to be the normal kid. I'm doing air quotes. You know what I'm saying? It's okay if your child struggles with something that and makes their life different than what you thought, because it can be really rewarding.
Yes.
Really. I mean, I am so proud of you and what you have done. And like this to me, I don't know. It can be very rewarding when you just embrace what's before you. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, whatever. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I guess that's a lot of things. But
it's good.
Yeah, for sure. Don't be afraid to ask for help because we aren't perfect.
Right.
And to give yourself some grace and realize you're going to make mistakes. You're not always going to know the right thing to say.
Right.
And that's okay. Right. You're not going to be able to fully understand everything your child is going through, and that's okay. And you can't fix it, and that's okay. Throw that picture out the window of what you envision life to be and just take it and work through it as it comes, and just know that you're gonna love and accept and help them work through whatever. And there's beauty, whether you don't see it when you're in the thick of it, when you're in the throes of it, and you're just pissed off at the world. There is beauty to be found in the struggle and in the challenges.
Yes. And
you learn so much more about yourself and finding your own power, and the path that you thought you were going down is not the path that you ended up going down, but it ended up being more important.
Yes.
You learn so much more.
Yes.
And so when I say I'm kind of thankful for the challenges I've gone through, that's not meaning that thank God my kids had depression and anxiety, because that's not what I mean. I mean, I've been opened up to a whole new world, a whole new way of thinking and seeing things that I'm so thankful for.
Yeah.
And then being able to take that and help other people.
Yes.
Like what you guys are doing, which is amazing.
For every, if we talk about a child, for every child that is struggling with suicidal thoughts or anxiety or depression or OCD or PTSD, whatever it may be, there is at least one parent that is struggling with helping them too. And that means that even if the parents aren't struggling with mental health challenges, like they still have someone to relate to because there's other parents there that are going through something similar. And everybody's story is going to be different. Like nobody has the exact same story to a T, but there's always people who can relate to what you're going through in a sense. And I guess I never thought about it like as like parents can relate to each other with this kind of thing. Yeah.
This was so good.
It was good, yeah.
Karen.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Miss Karen.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everybody at home, for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.